Welcome into Rooster Rant. Today is November 2nd, 2025. I am your host, Matt Anderson. Joining me, as always, is Alex Jones of the Big Spur and a special guest of the show, but very familiar to you on the Chief Sports Network. JC Sherbert is in the house with us. So, guys, we got a lot to get to tonight. Big news of the day. We're going to hit off the top. Mike Shula has been relieved of his duties as offensive coordinator at South Carolina. On this show, we always talk about the game that was, the big moments, the stats, all that. We're not hitting that tonight. Last night was the same thing that's happened virtually every game outside of Vanderbilt this year, where the Gamecocks just played a great game, or not a great game, not a great game, but they played well enough to be in a position to win, or the third or fourth quarter. And again, the offense just had to be so perfect all the time and every moment that they had a chance to score, and they weren't, which made the defense, despite how good they've been all season, have to play perfect as well. And at the end of the day, when you're playing a bunch of snaps on defense, you're going to get worn down. And when you're playing teams of the caliber of Ole Miss, Alabama, LSU before they went on their downfall, that's what's going to happen. Eventually, the dam's going to break loose, and it did again last night, which led to Shane Beamer making probably a decision he should have made a couple weeks ago, frankly, or maybe not at all, hiring Mike Shula as offensive coordinator. But again, Mike Shula has been let go. And with that, we're going to get into Rooster Rant.
The barnyard's fired up or down in the dumps. Roosters high, roosters low. It's college football, don't you know? Either way, let's go. Let's talk about it. Let's scream and shout it. Let's fire everybody fast. Or celebrate, it's Rooster Rant. Now here's a late night Gamecock. Matt Anderson and the pride of Hampton County, Alex Jones, and all of you on Rooster Rant.
Welcome back into the rant, everybody. Alex, you've had a long trip home from Oxford. Alex is out there covering the game. First off, Alex, were you expecting this news this morning on the drive home?
Yeah, I'd say it felt like this news was coming, just with everything that the offensive way they've been formed all season. Then last night, just some of the things that were going on with, quarterback play calling and all that in general. It kind of felt like this was inevitable and felt like there's a very good chance it was going to happen today.
Yeah, I think so too. And JC, last year, probably a little less than a year ago, you and I had a Illinois bowl game preview. We knew that Mike Shula was going to be the offensive coordinator in that game. A few days later, it felt like we were having an emergency show to talk about Mike Shula being hired. So, JC, from then to now, what are your thoughts? Get them out. It's time to rant.
Well, I've apologized to the fan base since before 3 weeks ago. I mean, about this, I didn't see it coming. I said today we did a little special ITG podcast, about 20 minutes long. You can catch that on the Inside the Gamecocks podcast channel or on the YouTube channel, where I suppose somebody inside the building that didn't see it coming. And you may wonder why. I don't know. Maybe there's a disconnect between practice and calling the plays in the games, or game planning, or whatever. I think everybody's thought was they finished well. Shula was coaching Lenore Sellers last year. He was kind of the quarterback's coach, which I think helped Dowell Loggins call plays better and game plan better. So just keep it rolling, shoot. Just keep the offense the same and keep it rolling. It worked. It's starting to work, starting to click. It's going to click better. The bowl game, honest to God, was the high water mark.
Yeah.
Because if you remember in that game, South Carolina went up and down the field. They just screwed up. They missed a field goal. They missed a fake field goal. They missed on a fourth down. They were inside Illinois territory all day. Play calling didn't look any different. Sellers did. Part of that was how Illinois was playing them. But the people that were right about it, if there's a quarterback coaching complaint here, the people that were right about it, listened to the press conferences where I think one of the worst things that ever got public was one of the most heroic plays in Carolina history where Sellers takes off and races to the end zone to beat Clemson. They kept harping publicly on, well, he had Nick Harbor open. Well, I mean, look, I love Nick Harbor. Sometimes he drops passes, and things had not gone well. Delvine Campbell, you could have said it was a touchdown, dropped a touchdown. I mean, he took matters into his own hands. I just don't, the more I think back about that, the more I'm like, I just, maybe that wasn't the right move, for a developing quarterback. Little did I know, and I've apologized for this because I didn't see it coming, and a lot of other people did, that this offense was going to change. And like the stuff that Sellers really had to work on. So when they talked about making him a better pocket passer and all that good stuff, I thought, oh, neat, cool. Well, that part of the offense probably left a lot to be desired at times last year. So they're going to just, when they have to call those plays, they're going to work on him being better at executing it. Sounds good to me. I didn't know it was going to be 80% of the passing game. I also didn't know they were going to revert, they were going to get their offensive line coach who had his own problems to install the running game from Mark Trestman's Baltimore Ravens pre-Lamar Jackson. I had no idea that was going to happen. And there's just a lot of things that, you're not privy to in this business all the time. And that I would have sounded the alarms. You guys know me. You know my stance on NFL versus college. I've been saying that probably the whole Beamer era. And so I apologize. I'm sorry. I was all for it. A lot of other people were all for it. It was wrong. It was a wrong call to make. As far as it happening today, I hate it when good people get fired, but it absolutely was the right call and needed to happen probably sooner. I said all week about the Ole Miss game, you don't revert, keep doing what you did against Alabama. Well, it looked good for a little while. Then Lenore's, who had a bad game. Let's just be honest. He had a bad game. I'm not saying that he was, this is all on play calling, but he misfires on a couple, and then all of a sudden against another team with a bad secondary, the idea is to line up and run it. And there's two things that I think did it for me did it for Beamer last night. The end of the first half, you got a pick. You got a minute 39. You're only down 17-7, still in the game. You drive
and you get the ball back to start the second half.
Yeah, drive down, get a field goal, whatever. I've seen everybody. Clemson used to be really good at this. They'd get the ball and then get the ball in the second. The middle eight is what they call it.
Yeah.
And Carolina's out there huddling up and running it, and the clock's just ticking and 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 ticking. And it's like, wow. And that's when Shane Beamer proceeded to go insane on the sidelines into the headset. Louis Riddick talked about it all night long, how he couldn't believe this was the offense and this was the plan. Then, the defense, this has been completely unfair to what I consider to be an overperforming good enough to win unit on defense.
Absolutely.
I think he's done his job this year. Look, it was never going to be like last year's defense. I think that's all what we all did think and believe. Was like, hopefully we were sitting there over the summer going, if I'd have told you this is what the defense is going to be this year, like playoff, right? Playoff, because the assumption is we'll just do the same offense and Lenore's will be that much better, and you got weapons and all this stuff, and a better passing game. That's all anybody's worried about. Better passing game, and hopefully the line will block, but they should be able to. Even if the line was as good as last year's, it would have been fine. But none of that happened. But I think it's fundamentally unfair for a defense that plays its butt off, its ass off, really. I mean, last night, it wasn't perfect. They missed some. They had the tackling bugaboo in the first half. Well, guess what? They went in the locker room, made adjustments. Lacey, until the last run of the game, wasn't doing much second half. Trinidad Chambliss, they were defensive tackles were getting him on the ground. Gabriel Brownlow Dindy, Makel Goodwin, whatever they did to scheme
It looked just
up,
like Bama.
It was outstanding by the defense. And so they sit there. The unfortunate punt thing happened. And then all of a sudden it's 20-14. They kick a field goal. All right, Carolina gets the ball back. 11 minutes left. You're down 9, not 8, 9. And South Carolina literally, because Ole Miss was playing back for pass, right? Literally just started running it up the middle 4 or 5 straight times. Now they were turning out first downs. 7 minutes come off the clock. They finally decide to throw, and Lenoris gets sacked 2 or 3 times, and that's a ball game. So next play, Lacey to the house. And so that just kind of did it for me. That just kind of shows you that you had an offensive coordinator that just really could not handle the moment, did not really have good plans. And if you think back through the years, Mike Shula is probably a little bit more well-known as a quarterback's coach than a play caller. He did play call in a Super Bowl, but I think that was wrong too. Everybody gets excited about Cam Newton. You should have been looking at what Cam Newton did at Auburn because and here's my final thoughts on this. I've said it before. Lenore Sellers this year, his performance, he looks like a rookie quarterback in the NFL. He reminded me another guy that was in a bad system for the NFL, but also was going to take. He reminds me of watching Caleb Williams last year with the Bears. So why do those guys that are really good in college struggle when they get up there? Because it's a different game. It's a different system. There are different things that they're asked to do. There's thought, there's process, there's processing and things like that have to take place. And this is not Lenoris's game yet. And it's not the University of South Carolina's responsibility to have him take his lumps in college and go 3-6 so he can go have a better rookie year, especially when you consider this. And it's my final thought.
Yeah, this is
who's the best quarterback in the NFL? Patrick Mahomes. What offensive system did he come out of? The air raid, the Mike Leach style Cliff Kingsbury air raid at Texas Tech. Okay, what's another great quarterback? Josh Allen. You know what he ran at Wyoming? The option.
Yeah.
I mean, they don't care up there. It's not your responsibility. You don't get any bonus points for doing this. And I'm not saying that it was, oh my God, let's get Lenoris better. I just think there was just a complete disconnect and kind of a, I don't know. I'm glad for the sake of the football program for the rest of this year it happened, but long term, this is an important hire. It's important to get this right at this point because the clock is ticking on this, and people don't want to see bad offense anymore. And this has been the worst of those years. Marcus Satterfield would have one good game and then blow it up and start over like I don't know what he was thinking. Dowell Loggins was about a C+, right?
Yeah, but JC, you sit there with Dowell, and one thing I will say is we didn't realize the Lonnie issues. The Lonnie was an offensive line. Maybe a worker.
Yeah, well, yeah, especially in 2023 and even last year, but. C+ probably all told. I still think people didn't like him because his name was Dowell Loggins and not Garrett Riley. But
the second half of that season last year figured it out offensively.
Yeah, I think he started.
They're like, let's just use Lenoris. Let's use his legs thing, and then the play calls really started to come with Loggins. Where think back to that Texas A&M game where he's dialing up kind of that fake option play where Simon kind of leaks out and gets a touchdown. That was kind of the thing just from a play calling standpoint. Was last night you had that option play, they ran it a few times in that game and it just never worked. And they felt like they kind of kept going back into something we've talked about on this show and other shows on Chief Sports is just feel like they're trying to force the run game to get it going when it has been working.
Yeah. If Dowell had one thing, he got conservative sometimes. That's ticky tack though, compared to problem number A and problem C. Problem A had no reason to do this. He spent 1 year up there as an assistant getting coffee under Matt Rule, and then comes back and believes he's Andy Reid and screwed that to the pooch. When they finally said, stop doing this and just call it like you did at Temple or Texas Tech, offense was pretty good. They beat 2 top 10 teams because he just had 10 plays on a sheet to go do it. Shula's fundamentally different with worse results because there has been no, Carolina's the only team in FBS that hadn't had 350 yards of total offense this year in any game. I mean, it's awful. There's no Marcus Satterfield, oh, he figured it out for one game upside here. It is just bottom. And it's a guy that, unfortunately, fellas, is not adapted to college football as a play caller, probably past his prime as a play caller. A good guy, really good quarterbacks coach. And it just was a disaster. And that's unfortunate, but I'm glad the decision was made and it's time to move on. And again, I personally apologize to everybody that I ever got behind this. Had I, in hindsight, certainly wouldn't have.
And to your point on that, JC, that's something that Shane Beamer kind of talked about tonight when he was kind of asked, like, looking back on it with hindsight being 2020 on the hire after the 2024 season. He kind of mentioned some of the things that you mentioned where it made sense for the hire with. He had worked with Lenoris. He had some of that NFL things that they kind of working in the NFL, but it just, hasn't worked out. And I mean, there's a lot of things we can, I'm sure we're going to get into here to tonight, but just, I think last night you could really kind of see the frustrations with Shane Beamer post game in the press conference especially when he was asked about the second half, right towards that the 2-minute drive where they just did not get anything going. You had to run up the middle to start it, and then had to call timeout. Like, it just wasn't working. Like, he was asked about that, and you could just really kind of feel the frustrations in his voice with some of the offense and the play calling and things like that. And that's what made me think that this was going to happen tonight or sometime today.
Yeah, I think that. I mean, I had people texting me last night. I mean, some folks can just read a message board and they can read the room. And if you've read the Big Spur here for a while, if anybody in the football office was reading the room, you probably had an idea that fans were probably going to not even show up for Coastal, all of that. But JC, I hate the hindsight 2020 of in certain games you see on message boards, right? We should have gone for the extra point instead of the 2-point conversion, blah, blah, blah. The game would have changed. I don't like that because that's like just quick. You can do some quick math, but I like to go back and look why in hindsight 2020 back 6 months ago, can we say this was the wrong decision? And, when I'm talking to my sources, one of the things that I heard all offseason was the offense was much further ahead than the defense. I heard that the offense was going to have to carry the defense. And that was a mantra, not just from Tony on the Big Spur. We all heard it. And then when I probed a little deeper right before the final preseason scrimmage, I found out that Dylan Stewart wasn't on the field a lot for the defense in the summer and the fall because he wrecked everything. They had to take him off the field to be able to run the offense. And looking at how this defensive line has played, you can't really compare them to last year, but they've played pretty well, especially these last couple of games. And you kind of see, well, maybe the writing was actually on the wall back in the fall. And then you get really frustrated when you see the first couple games of the season play out the way they did. And then you're going into the LSU game with a chance to fix your season, right? And it's a bye week. And maybe if you hadn't seen it and on the practice field in the games, you just say, look, got to cut bait. Sorry, Mike, great guy. Pay that buyout. Wish you well. We'll give you great referrals for anything you want in life. But that's going to be the thing that sticks in Gamecock fans' crawls is the fact that this season could have potentially been saved by the way you see the offensive line performing post-Teasley. And who knows, JC, and maybe this offense rolls up 450 yards a game the last 3 games of the season. For those of you that missed the news today or you're just checking in for the first time, Sean Elliott and Mike Furry are going to be co-offensive coordinators. Sean Elliott's going to say these are the run packages we like. I think this is a good time to run this play. Furry's going to be the passing game coordinator. So they'll work together, and that'll be a good marriage. I think they'll be fine. But honestly, towards the end, I thought just give 3 plays to Lenore Sellers to call in the huddle based on what he's feeling and let him decide what he's comfortable with because it really couldn't get any worse. Jason, you said it best the other day. Kids with Xboxes could probably do a better job. I mean, some of my friends are really good at NCAA football. I bet they could have done a better job calling plays when you have Sellers.
Yeah, I mean, and to that point, it's not that calling plays on Xbox is different because you're dealing with AI generated, football players.
Where
the human element isn't in it. But that said, you know what you do on Xbox? You find a handful of plays that work, and you run them over and over and over again, don't you? And then guess what? When the person you're playing or you're playing the computer, that defense finally gets wise, you fake that and you're running around the other side. Like last night, man. Okay, by the way, the other thing that did me in totally, I I've been calling for this for a few weeks, probably since LSU or Oklahoma. Is okay. So they run that little orbit motion where Fuller goes around the edge, and they ran it early in the game for about 5 yards. Okay, that worked. Okay, so Matt Fuller is not the type of back that gets to the edge good. He's kind of a north-south guy. I don't think there's anything wrong with running that every now and then because you catch the defense off guard, they don't expect it, and boom, he cuts up. 4th and 1, they run that. It's slow developing. Ole Miss had 3 guys over there. I mean, that was probably one of the worst calls I've ever seen on a 4th and 1. I'd rather them just run it up the middle or do a quarterback sneak and get stuffed. I just don't.
Yeah.
We're running it wide with Matt Fuller. So here's what good OCs do, though. They said, they had run that earlier for 5 yards. They fake that, and Lenore Sellers runs around the other side, and he's still running. He runs to Tupelo, right? That's what, in college, that's what you do. In the NFL, there's probably a list of reasons why you can't do that. I don't know why. It's hard for me to say that because I watched now I'll say this. NFL teams with bad defenses like the Bengals and Bears today, that's beautiful. Because they can't play defense because they're all injured and the players suck. That's when that level of football really gets rolling with the points and it's exciting to watch, but college isn't about that. So anyway, my bad on that. Go ahead.
Well, JC, I want to say one more thing. And I think there is, like, Lenore Sellers had his worst game of the year last year, and he hasn't been, in his limited opportunities, he hasn't been sharp. And so it's really easy to say Lenore's missed this pass when he's only attempted 16 a game, 15 a game, 22 a game. But going into the third quarter, when they interviewed Lane Kiffin on TV, they asked him a couple of good questions, I thought. I thought the sideline reporter did a good job. And he said, well, we got to make this a 2-score game. And they said, you're really doing a good job with Lenore Sellers with 2 spies. And he said, well, yeah, they have 2 game wreckers. They have Lenore Sellers and they have Dylan Stewart. We're going to give them the attention that they deserve. So when Ole Miss can rush with 2 guys and still sack Lenore Sellers, that just tells me that, and do it multiple times, that the play calling, it wasn't there. And JC, you talked about college. Let's go to 2 more examples. 2 Heisman Trophy winners, Johnny Manziel and Tim Tebow. 2 opposite type of players, but they won national championships in college because the head coaches, offensive coordinators, all the way down said, this is what they're good at. And they both flamed out within 3-4 years in the NFL, despite multiple chances. And it's not college's responsibility to make you a good pro. You need to be able to produce pros. That's what you sell in recruiting. You will have an opportunity in the NFL by coming here based on our track record. But I think that's it. Nail on the head, AC.
Dude, you look at that. I mean, Caleb Williams was number 1. He played for who? I mean, Cam Ward. Yeah. Oh, no, he played for Lincoln Riley. Cam Ward played for Shannon Dawson at Miami, which is he's a spread guy. There's no correlation between pro style. I mean, there's one. JJ McCarthy got drafted in the first round, but literally with this offense, guys, South Carolina I've never seen a team that's not good at running the ball. They don't have the power running, right? They don't have the backs. They don't have the linemen. They don't really have the quarterback to run that style of offense because you've got to have a guy that can go off play action and dink and dunk and West Coast it up. And that's just not Lenore's strength. It's very restrictive to what he can do. Okay. So I've never seen a team through 9 college football games insist on being a power running team when they can't freaking run the football. I mean, we've had a lot of teams around here in South Carolina that cannot run the football. Some of them were pretty good teams that won their share of games. They just couldn't really run the ball. The Spurrier era, before
Jake Bentley throwing for 800 yards up in Death Valley. And,
I mean,
putting up 38 points or whatever it was and still losing by 30.
Yeah, and they ran a little bit that day. And then, at least under Mustang, you had Mon Denson would scrape some out and stuff. But this team that's not their strength. To scratch out rushing yardage, they have to have Lenoris get on the move and have his share. And then they can run a little with the backs. And, you kind of set all that up. We're going to run it right up the middle with our backs. which all that whole thing leaves a lot to be desired, right? The interior, the whole part. So I've never seen a team that's like, trying to force this identity when it would just be a whole lot easier to do something else that's far more creative and entertaining to watch. So I've never seen anything like. I've never seen a team suck that bad at running the football that insisted that they were a running team. That I'm beside myself.
We're going to talk a lot about this. Go ahead, Alex.
Yeah, I was going to say we're going to talk about it more, I'm sure, after the break. But I'm really interested to see what this offense looks like here these next 2 games because just from a playbook standpoint, it's going to be hard even with a bye week to kind of completely change things. But I think the biggest change you'll probably see is. Steve, I try to make this make sense, but when the plays are going to be called, like these up the run type of middles, when are they going to be called? Because it just feels like a lot of times they're not being called in the right moments. You may have the same type of play calls that you see under Shula, but they're just going to be executed and run differently. And you already see him like these past few games with Sean Elliott. Some of his kind of fingerprints are on this run game. Some of the stuff they're doing with moving the tight end into the B gap or the A gap types of things, those are Sean Elliott types of things, and you're seeing them. So I imagine you're going to see a smaller type of playbook. I think the biggest thing they're going to have to accomplish is getting Norris's confidence back just because last night, just some of those errant throws, like Dre Jacobs is probably still running if he connects with that one. Like he was wide open. Like it just feels like there's a lot of confidence that's been lost and getting him out of the pocket, some of these type of quick throws, that's going to help get it because it just feels like that confidence is not there right now.
They do absolutely nothing to get him comfortable. Every team in the country does that, right? Especially with a guy that maybe has had a disappointing year. Get him comfortable. Every team in the country does that with their quarterback. I don't understand. You know who doesn't? The NFL.
Yeah.
Because you're a pro. Get him comfortable. What are you talking about? Here's the thing about the plays, too. I saw it on the Big Spur today I mentioned earlier. As far as the plays, the playbook, installing a new playbook. Realistically, you can probably install 3 new plays for a week. Yeah. But the upside to having Shula's large NFL playbook, and we've seen it from time to time, is that there are good plays in there. You got to find them. It's like the encyclopedia. Like if I care about history and I'm just interested in reading about wars, and I get the encyclopedia, I'm going to skip over the science and the math and the everything else. I'm just going to read about the wars. Well, that's kind of the idea. The playbook's like an encyclopedia. You just got to pick out the right topics to fit the personnel, and then go run them, change up the formations, and I think you can have an. So that's the silver lining for those that are thinking they're just going to go run a whole new scheme. The scheme is like vast. There really is no scheme. It's a big collection of plays. The scheme comes from emphasizing what you do best and calling it. So there's the silver lining there, if there is one, as far as what's going to take place moving forward.
And one thing there, just to keep in mind, and we got to hit a break here after this, but Mike Shula didn't listen to anybody really except for Lonnie Teasley for a lot of this season. He was the passing game coordinator who was going to call the passing games. He was going to lean on Lonnie Teasley for things that he thought that Teasley thought made sense in the running game. But now you have 2 coaches that might not have had as much of a voice as other coaches have had this season. The offensive coordinator, the offensive line coach. So now you get to have those 2 guys sit in a room with Shane Beamer and say, hey, I thought this play was pretty daggum good. Anytime we've run it in practice, it's worked. I know my guys are comfortable doing it. All right, put that one on the board. And then you're going to go find 15 or 20 of them. But I think the larger thing that most Gamecock fans are worried about in this point of the season is Shane Beamer has to hire another offensive coordinator. And that was talked about tonight on the telecast or the teleconference that Alex is a part of. So when we come back after this break and we hear from our sponsors, we're going to break down what this means for Shane Beamer, what it means for the Gamecock program, how much luster is off of the ring at this point with what happened this season for Shane Beamer and the Gamecock program as a whole. So we're going to get to all that in just a minute, but please listen to this word from our sponsors.
Morning, Carl. Usual?
Yeah.
Your oldest was in here the other day. Said the two of you took a trip down to my neck of the woods. How'd that go?
You might as well give me one of those Carolina cars while you're at it.
I knew I liked that one.
Yeah.
There you go, my friend.
Thanks.
Hey, Carl. Congratulations.
See you tomorrow, Freddie.
You bet.
JC Sherbert here had a brilliant idea that some good friends of mine in Florence have told me about. Next time you're having a wedding or an event or anytime you got to feed a bunch of people, talk to my friends over at Flavortown Eats and Events. That's right. It's a food truck / trailer, prepares the food fresh on site right there for you. No hassle. It's absolutely delicious. They'll come out, turnkey solution to feed the masses at your event. Go to their website right now. flavortownflow.com. That's flavortownflow.com. They have all the contact information you need, and they are a proud sponsor of the Late Night Gamecock Show and the Chief Sports Network.
Welcome to Palm Casual Patio Furniture. Because we are the factory, Palm Casual has the ability to offer the highest quality outdoor furniture paired with world-class service. Since 1979, our factory showrooms have done our best to make the buying process as easy as possible for our customers. Our understanding of the many factors that go into your decision has helped us create our 30-day trial period that increases the level of comfort our customers feel during the shopping experience. Visit us in Somerville, Mount Pleasant, Myrtle Beach, and Bluffton, and online at palmcasual.com for our products and out-of-state locations. Go Gamecocks!
This is the Late Night Gamecock Show with the pride of Hampton County, Alex Jones. And with the king of late night, Matt Anderson. Go Gamecocks!
Welcome back into the show, everyone. I think one of the big things that sticks in the craw of a lot of Gamecock fans is the fact that this isn't the first time there's been a woeful offense at South Carolina or an offense that didn't capitalize on the individual parts. Spencer Rattler started in the NFL, might be the best arm that's ever come through South Carolina and was not capitalized on, point blank. Lenore Sellers, if he goes pro after this year, was not capitalized on his abilities. Now, the big issue is that when we have these things happen in South Carolina, you don't have a head coach that has experience calling plays on offense or defense. And look, I was the biggest proponent of Shane Beamer being the head coach at South Carolina when the list of names came out. I do think a CEO approach can work. It's worked a lot of places. And I mean, just look in the upstate and you can see it. But the one issue does come into play where you can't just take over play calling duties. And now, for the fourth, fifth time in his tenure at South Carolina, if you count Mike Bobo, there's going to be another offensive coordinator at South Carolina next year, and Shane Beamer is going to be making that hire. So, Alex, I'll start with you. I ask you, do Gamecock fans have reason to be worried about that situation?
I mean, I think so. I mean, it hasn't worked out. I mean, we talked about how Logan's kind of 2024 worked out, but I mean, it's a huge hire for Shane Beamer just because, I mean, you look at the track record and all that, and I'm sure we're going to get into it, but it just feels like some of this pro-style type of offense is just not built for what South Carolina can be. And getting to these college-style offense that you see around the country, like, I mean, you can kind of look at what Lane Kiffin at Ole Miss did last night with some of their things. Like, you know, some people in the comments talking about tempo and the flow of the game Ole Miss had. I mean, it was that offense, they used tempo perfectly, and the way they spread you out and things like that. Feels like an offense that Lenora Sellers could just thrive in just because they do get those easy types of throws and you open up running lanes for your quarterback and things like that. Just feels like you've got to get into those type of systems at South Carolina and be a little bit, I mean, maybe different and unique I'm not trying to say to be like a Vanderbilt type of unique with what they're doing in their system, but with the way they're unique, they make it very hard for you to defend things that they do offensively. I just feel like South Carolina needs to find a way to get into that type of uniqueness.
And so, JC, I'll come to you now real quick. There are 50 guys, maybe 100 guys in the United States of America that can run that offense Alex just described. Now you just got to go find the one that you like, but you cannot stick with what you tried to do. This has to be I effed up. It's not going to work. I've learned my lesson, or I'm not going to have a job after next season.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, this is it. I mean, you're not, nobody's going to put up with bad. It's not just bad offense, I remember Sylvester Croom when he was at Mississippi State, who Beamer worked for, had a really terrible offense. But man, I remember them trotting out this little guy that was like a tough little dude, like 6 foot, against Carolina in 06. And their defense was really good. Ellis Johnson was the D coordinator there then. Our offense was god awful. And it just never worked. And it was a pro style system or whatever. It just never worked. I mean, I think they lost a game 3-2 at one point during his tenure there. And it just doesn't work. That situation, though, they didn't have a lot of personnel. It took Dan Mullen a long time to kind of revamp and get, Dak Prescott and guys like that in there to even build what Dan Mullen does, which is a very power run style thing. It'd be one thing if you didn't have players, because some defensive coaches get into that. They end up they're worried about their defense, and that's that. Will Muschamp, to his credit, at least tried on offense.
Yeah.
I mean, Kurt Roper, Brian McClendon, Mike Bobo, give me any 3 of those, Carolina's probably still in the top 25, just to be honest. And, at least 2 of those things I didn't think was worth a couple of nickels. I mean, to his credit, he got burnt with the pro style crap with Charlie Weiss 1 year at Florida. And I'm not saying he hired good ones. Obviously, there's a reason that the offenses weren't all that good for the most part. And when they were, the defenses weren't good, whatever, with Muschamp. But he learned his lesson. And it seems like Beamer would have with Marcus Satterfield. And I think that Dowell Loggins was a solution that everybody could have lived with. I mean, you'd had to live with some of the things he did, but see, Dowell's a different story too, because what Dowell Loggins did, he was in the pros 20 years. He said, I'm going to go to college. I'm going to learn that game. And unlike the other 2, he understood the differences between the 2. First press conference, he mentions the hash marks. That's huge, by the way. So I don't know that necessarily was a bad hire. I think that at the time, then with Clemson hiring Garrett Riley, who was a big name and had just called plays in the national championship game, people got a little underwhelmed with it, and that's fine. But, as far as what he needs to do in the system, I mean, mentioned Lane Kiffin. Lane Kiffin is Lane Kiffin's a pro style. You know where he learned how to call plays? Norm Chow. Norm Chow was a pro style guy. For Pete Carroll, they were pro style. Leinart. But you know what? They didn't run it like the NFL. They ran it like college. And then that evolved. And then when Kiffin went to Florida Atlantic, Kendall Browse came down and Jeff Levy came down. And so what he's done is he's taken his pro philosophies and stuff and then merged it with the Art Briles style air raid, which is good for run game and creativity and stuff like that. And it's just this juggernaut type of system that it's good. And then he dials them up and he's not afraid to take chances. So like the basics of pro style, is one thing. It's a broad term these days, but what you can't do is run an NFL offense. I mean, it's not an NFL. You can't. That doesn't work in college. It has to be. I mean, like I watched Ben Johnson call plays today. It was masterful. He would categorically fail in college football because nobody would be able to get it. It's too constricted. It's this, that, and the other. So, I think people ask me all the time, what are your top names? Who would you go get? I don't really have any names. I don't know who's going to be available. Queen of the Cocks in the chat box mentions that if all these openings help or hurt Carolina, I think it helps in a certain way because let's say you have a really good offensive coordinator, somebody gets fired because they can't stop anybody, and then a new coach comes in and wants to just bring his own guy. Well, there's a coordinator that didn't get fired that needs a job, and it's an SEC job. And I think some of your best ideas come from Group of Five and FCS, even high school at at times, because those guys have to scheme. They have to call, they have to attack, because the talent level on the lower levels is a lot more even. And maybe it is up here too now with the portal and stuff. But you know, there's not a program that's elevated that's any good that runs crap offense. There's just not. Those days ended in like when Saban hired Kiffin and they started running modern offense. Those days ended. You know, the guy I like, and he's not going to probably be the guy for the job, just to be honest. I'll be straight with you on that. But the type of offense I think would work at South Carolina is what Mike Shanahan. Now, he's not related to the Mike Shanahan from the pros.
Yeah.
They're not related. Has had, and he kind of came from that. There's a lot of really good offensive football coaches in the northeastern part of the country. The coaching like the Yankee League. Chip Kelly came from up there, et cetera, et cetera. This guy's been with Kurt Signetti since Indiana, Pennsylvania. They run it's a heavy RPO offense that consistently puts the defense in conflict. So you want to know why Indiana can hang half 100 on just about anybody? Because it confuses the hell out of the defense. They literally can't. You can't key it. You don't know what. Now, a quarterback has to make the right decisions, but you know, Roark and Mendoza are good, but you know, very few teams stop them. You know, I mean, it's and if you and they wear defenses out so much and can scramble their brain so much that they just keep scoring. And you look at those teams playing, they're gassed, they don't know what to do. That's what you have to do. You have to have something like that that gives you an edge. And I don't care. I mean, that's what Vanderbilt does. And I don't care if you're at Georgia or South Carolina or wherever. There's not a single good team in the league that doesn't have a competent to very competent to dangerous play caller. And that has to happen. You can't rely on NFL track records and all that anymore. I don't care if I ever hear the words NFL again. Right.
Yeah. Somebody mentioned that in the chat box.
It needs to be a college offense that rock and rolls.
JC, you
think
brought
Alex,
up
we get your
Vanderbilt.
take on go. Yeah, Alex.
Yeah, I was going to say, and to JC's point about Vanderbilt, I know I mentioned them, but the thing with Vanderbilt is they have their identity. And if you're South Carolina, do you know what South Carolina's offensive identity is right now? There is not. But they have their identity.
It's called slamming your head against a brick wall.
Vanderbilt has their identity, and they recruit to it, and they execute at a high level. That's you, and not that, again, like I said earlier, not that South Carolina has to run what Vanderbilt's running, but you got to find that identity that you can execute, you can recruit to, and then that makes it so hard for teams to defend against you. That's what Vanderbilt's really accomplished this season. I know they got Diego Pavia, and everybody's going to think that Diego Pavia leaving is going to hurt Vanderbilt, but if you recruit to that system, they can just kind of reload and do that. Like that's something that South Carolina's got to do. They just got to build that identity, recruit to it, and go with it.
And brother, I'll tell you about that. That system's been good for a long time.
Yeah,
that system. The kill zone, somebody said this the other day, and I'd said it a while back. If Jerry Kill had not unfortunately had health problems with epilepsy and stuff, where he just had to quit some of his jobs and get healthy, that guy would be in a blue blood winning national championships. I can assure you of that. You know, this Tim Beck guy that's their OC at Vandy he was at TCU. I think that was Gary. Was that when Gary Patterson? Yeah, Gary Patterson was there right before Sonny Dykes. Then was old Pittsburgh State guy. I mean, and he runs that offense. He was the head coach at Pittsburgh State for 10 years. That was a good school out in Kansas, and he just sits up there and runs Kill's system, and that system's works. So people that think Pavia runs at an insanely high level. Yeah. He's very efficient, but they got other guys waiting in the wings. They got a kid, Jack Elliott, from up here at Mount Carmel High School in Chicago that probably could be next man up. Heck, they may get Jared Curtis, right? And I think that system's going to be problematic for a long time. But yeah, you're right. Look, and the identity thing, I'm like, I've always thought about that. I cringe when I hear that sometimes because it's like, what's the identity? I'm like, why do you want anybody to know your identity? Because they know what they have to stop, right? You can practice that. But identity doesn't necessarily mean that. Identity means, I think, this is what you're really good at.
Yes. Yeah.
And you can't identify anything that South Carolina's good at right now on offense.
And your identity is what you're going to run, that you just basically look at the defense and say, stop us. We're going to do it, and you're going to have to stop us. That's kind of what your identity is.
And really, I think this is the rock and the hard place for – initially I thought this, and I'm actually even thinking about right now, I'm kind of changing my tune. The one saving grace, I think, for Shane Beamer in this situation and for Gamecock Nation as a whole is the NIL revenue split, the $20 million, because you have to go find the offensive coordinator that you believe in. And people are going to get bent out of shape about player retention, but just understand player retention is going to be a 50-50 coin flip for every single player on the roster going forward. So you can't worry about that. There's going to be players in the portal. You see it in college basketball every year. You have guys coming from NIIA or, just some mid-level school around the country. Look at Talon was not, mid-level. He was Minnesota, but then you have like Florida's point guard that won the national championship with. Yeah. You can find guys. So you have to get this right.
Trinidad Chambliss, man.
Even if you don't have the boosters that come in and say, I believe in Shane. Yeah, exactly. I mean, you can't worry about player retention if you're Shane Beamer right now. You have to go find the guy that's going to make you a head coach 2 years from now. And you have $20 million for the program. 16, 17 needs to go to football next year, if not more. But you have to get this football program right because Gamecock fans are sick and tired of it.
And look, there's more. There's outside NIL money too. The universities. I mean, this year's, I guess, Carolina spent just as much as LSU, anybody else. I mean, but yeah, you're going to have to, personnel wise, after a year like this, you're always going to have some attrition. I don't know who's leaving, who's staying. There's some that I don't really care if they leave, just from a player standpoint, not a personality standpoint. There's some I'll cry, but chances are I'll probably be happy in a couple of instances and go suck my thumb and have my wife hold me in others. But guess what? The great thing about college football, Missouri spent all this money on Williams Noire, in-state kid, state of Missouri kid, 5-star, won it. Dude played a lot out the door, right? Went to Nebraska for more money, and he's playing okay at Nebraska. All they did was go sign Damon Wilson, have one of the best defensive lines in America. I mean, you can't sweat it these days, but it's not who you lose, it's who you replace them with. And so I agree with you there. My man, Justin, I think this is Gamecock World from the Big Spur.
Let's go. What's up, Gamecock World?
What's up, dog? Good to hear from you, buddy. Would Buster Faulkner, Georgia Tech OC, leave for South Carolina? I think he's getting a head coaching job.
Yeah. And what if Brent Key leaves too? Like, I think he can get that Georgia Tech job.
Now I'll say this. He was interested in coming to South Carolina at some point. At the time, he was at Southern Miss. Southern Miss didn't have good numbers at the time. But everybody I've talked to, and I know some people that know him well, thought the world of that guy. Plus, I like him a lot.
Yeah, Alex, I want to get to Marshall's comment in here. Marshall Carroll 198. And JC, let's get your take on this first. Isn't this going to be Beamer's most difficult OC hire because coaches know he's almost a sitting duck? The only thing I'll say before I turn it over to you, JC, is offensive coordinators want an opportunity to show that they can be offensive coordinators and coach well. And they're looking at that as a potential promotion despite what happens with Shane Beamer next year. Because if you're the offensive coordinator at South Carolina that works, well, you just locked in $1 million, $1.5 million, $2 million for the next 3 years. And if nothing else, you actually have a little bit more negotiating power at the table. You want me? Well, I want this. I want this dollar amount. I want this length of contract. I want this buyout. So I don't think it's going to be hard to get an offensive coordinator. It's just you trust South Carolina to hire one. JC, your thoughts?
Yeah, that's a big, here's the thing. And it's kind of funny because it's like a lot of people, they want to just not complain about everything, but everything's an issue. It's like, well, I have no faith in Beamer that he'll hire a good OC. Okay. And then they come back around and say, well, nobody's going to want to work for him because, well, maybe it's because nobody wants to work for him. That's not it. That's not how these jobs work. And I will tell you this right now. This is on him. He hired Mike Bobo. Mike Bobo left. He immediately hired Marcus Satterfield. Didn't really look at any other guys. Dowell Loggins, there was all this like that. That's why it was so bogus that whoever the clown is that was on the radio up in the upstate that wanted to just make stuff up about the University of South Carolina when he said that Clemson beat Carolina on Garrett Riley. Shane didn't talk to Garrett Riley. They didn't interview him because because Spencer Rattler probably wasn't coming back to play for Lincoln Riley's brother, right? That's not the only reason. I think one other person besides Dowell, and then, I think he kind of balled in. I don't think he saw this coming with Shula either. Let's just keep it going, it's not that he can't get people don't want to work for him, right? That he does.
If anything, you'd want to work for him. He stays out of your business.
Yeah, he's not. He
figure it out.
Basically, the head coach of the offense and the head coach of the defense. He's not. He ain't up your butt about anything. He's not a defensive minded coach. Sometimes those people put parameters on the offense. They won't tell you about it, but I've seen it. And I don't think Will Muschamp did that here, especially late in his tenure, right? But some of the defensive guys out there, they can't stand. I mean, I think it probably drove Nick Saban crazy to win games 51-21, but he liked winning more than he liked style, like defense. So I think that, I think it actually works in Beamer's favor that he is kind of he's a special teams guy. I think being the special teams coordinator for Shane Beamer is probably a little tough. Not that Joe DeCamillis can't handle it, but, I think it works, for anybody that wants an opportunity in the SEC.
Yeah, and I think, I've seen some questions in here. People I want to know about Kendall Briles or Lincoln Riley or this coach or that coach. And what I'll say to that is if Shane doesn't turn over every rock in America looking for people and getting conversations and interviews with people, this doesn't need to be, I have my three and I'm going to get one of them. You need to really, really take your time. And part of that is you do have a little bit of a benefit here. Let's say South Carolina loses to Texas A&M. Unfortunately, the end of the season, you're going to prepare for Clemson. You really shouldn't have to prepare for Coastal, but you might have to. But you can actually start doing some of that digging and have your search committees. You can have the agent conversations. Hey, this person might be willing to come. So you can spend some time doing some research. But I don't think this should be a rush decision, and you can't make any decision on player retention. So, JC, I mean, you agree it's way too early to talk about potential offensive coordinators, but I feel like we spent a good bit of time talking about the style offensive coordinator.
Yeah, and look, my parameters are this, and some people on the Big Spur that I'm convinced anything you say that isn't extremely negative and hellfire and brimstone, people, they don't comprehend it and they just go nuts. I said I agreed with Shane Beamer's vision for the offense. Let me explain this for the millionth time. And this audience probably hadn't heard me talk about it. The vision is very basic, right? He wants a balanced offense that can work with multiple types of quarterbacks because that's the reality of your roster. Sometimes you get this guy, sometimes you get, so what that basically means, right? He's probably not going out and doing a Gus Malzahn thing where you have to have a guy. It really only worked once with at the end of 2017 with the kid from Baylor that was the transfer when he didn't have like a Nick Marshall or a dang Cam Newton, like a dual threat running guy where he can carve you up in the run game. He's probably not going ground and pound like Wisconsin. That would be insane. Okay. You're never getting the reason Wisconsin did it is because Wisconsin can't get skill, but they have a bunch of Nordic
Yeah.
big Nordic ass offensive linemen up there.
They can build an offensive line up
They
there.
can build an offensive line, which is why Luke Fickell, you want to see a similar disaster to this, go look at Wisconsin. He went in there and thought he was going to run spread, and what an idiot. I mean, why? You can't do it at Wisconsin. He's probably not going to go Mike Leach style air raid. And when I say that, that's the pure air raid. You remember Leach would just throw it. He'd run it 5 times a game. That's probably not happening. That's it. Now I would throw in NFL offense needs to be off the table. But so that's just like a few very specific, overly committed to one thing that needs special type. Rich Rod's offense would be off the table because it's more of you have to have a running quarterback at all times to run that. That's all that is. There are literally, Alex does a segment called the Smorgasbord. There's literally a smorgasbord of college systems, coordinators, play callers, whatever out there. I mean, it's like a big Costco, right? The only thing you can't find at Costco is like specialty foods, right? That's what he's talking about, and so I do agree with that vision. That's smart. Stay away from something that you can't recruit to all the time. Stay away from, something that requires you to have an enormous, mean Nordic offensive lineman because you're nowhere near the Midwest. Stay away from the things that kind of paint you in a corner. Stay versatile. But there are plenty of, even the new air raids guys, Ben Arbuckle's system, Lake and Riley's system, they run the ball just as much as they throw it. So, chat box, won't we have to pay their buyout on top of Beamer's buyout if he gets canned next year? No way a new head coach keeps the old OC. Yeah, but they're not worried. University's not worried about that.
Well, University's not worried about Shane's buyout either. And people talk about
they're not.
27 and 21. They're not worried about it.
They're not worried about Shane Beamer's buyout. I confirmed that with a conversation I had earlier today. They're not. That's not going to prohibit anybody from doing anything. No matter how much the editorial board of the Charleston Post and Courier wants to warn Clemson and South Carolina to not pay those back because they're bitching about not putting student athletes rev share numbers public. They're kind of making it a political issue, and I don't know. I'm surprised they can get around with it. I think it's good for the players they don't put that out there. But I read an editorial. So you're not gonna pay the back. I'm like, come on, man. Live in reality.
Look, sorry, Post and Courier. Once that money's in the South Carolina coffers, it's their money now. The taxes have been paid, all of that. And then, look, there's enough boosters, even in little old South Carolina, that if there was overwhelming, and I mean overwhelming majority of big boosters that said, we're going to stop funding you in every single way we do. If this coach is there, like you see in Texas, like you see in Oklahoma, like you see in Georgia,
you get
Florida.
things done, man. I mean, and look, the university athletic, the football, from a business standpoint, there's some new things that are going to rub some people the wrong way with reseating and having to sell suites and stuff like that to get more revenue. It ain't time to have a dumpster fire of an offense with good players. I mean, I just don't, I don't. VK
I see another
says,
comment in here. Matthew asks, is Beamer 100% safe this year, even if the Gamecocks lose 2 to 3 more games? We really can't say an absolute.
Yeah.
JC, you tell me, okay, let's say the Gamecocks, the bottom completely falls out, lose to Coastal, get blown out by Clemson. I think anything's on the table at that point. But like I said on this show 4 weeks ago, everything starts with Shane Beamer right now, and above Shane Beamer is the AD. And the AD is going to give Shane Beamer the opportunity to fix this because of Shane does have goodwill in South Carolina. He has goodwill for just last year. You don't make wholesale changes because of a bad season unless there's just no shot. But if you look at this Gamecock roster right now, we talk about the blue chip ratio, how much we actually care about it. I don't know. But I do know that South Carolina is pretty daggum close to a top 20, top 15, top 10 even blue chip ratio. So as long as recruiting is going well, And I don't see, I mean, Landon Duckworth, Hale McGranahan had an excellent report today on the Big Spur saying that things are still positive with Landon Duckworth. So unless the bottom falls out
and
recruiting, bottom falls out of funding, boosters, all of that, I do think Shane will be here next year and should be.
Your roster as a whole is young for the most part. Now, that's not me excusing anything that's gone on this year, but if you do have a coaching change, I mean, the odds that you lose a lot that are likely. But so there are things to build on, but you just got to. I mean, we've nailed it. Like, this is an important hire. Like, he's got to nail this hire just because of what you have on the roster currently, plus what could be in the next season.
I'm going to say something a little controversial, maybe. To your question, Matt, if they lose 2 to 3 more games, no. And like I said earlier this week, it can always get worse. I'm not pulling for that outcome. I don't think that outcome is the best thing for South Carolina. But, these 3 games are important because it can always get worse. It can always get worse. I mean, losing, and there are certain people with high influence at the University of South Carolina that don't really like Coastal Carolina. There's a history there. Coastal used to be a branch campus of the university. It used to be like USC Upstate. There's some old timers around there that have a lot of influence, that have money, that you don't lose to Coastal Carolina. Some people, it's worse than losing to Citadel in their eyes. And unfortunately, Coastal's actually turned it around and looking pretty good. They're in the mix for the Sun Belt. So if a catastrophic loss like that happened, and let's say you get blown out by A&M and Clemson, let's say it's just a disaster. It's like nothing gets better. They go backward. There's still, some things that happen in games that you go, wow, this is not good. It can get worse. Like I said, the buyout's not going to be prohibitive for anybody, at Carolina. That's the folks I talked to said that's not even an issue. What they want is better football. You need a better product. If you're going to charge people all this money and then expect fans to contribute to NIL and things like that, then you have a fiduciary duty to not screw it up, at least if you're coaching. And that's all the coaches in every sport. And so, 3-9, there's a difference between 5-7 with a win over Clemson, 6-6 in a bowl where you rallied at the end.
Yeah.
And 3-9 with a loss to Coastal and blowouts after you made it what needed to be done earlier. So, because that means maybe you've just kind of lost it. So, that's my take on it. That's not controversial, really. It's just a fact. I mean, there's 3, as long as there's games left on the schedule, fellas, can always get worse. I don't think the offense can, but I think the overall thing can. I think.
Yeah.
What you have to hope for if you're a Gamecock fan right now is the Oklahoma game, the LSU game, the Alabama game, and the Ole Miss game. I mean, just take those last 3. I mean, those are all top 7 teams in the country that if the offense was just a hair better, you might have won all 3 of those games. So as a fan, you have to get in that mindset of 7-5 still a possibility. It's not likely.
And Matt, it's not that it's not so much that the offense wasn't good.
Or 7-6.
It's 7-6. My bad. My brain was trying to do math while I was talking. That's dangerous. It's not. It's why it wasn't good.
Yeah.
It's the why. I mean, wow. I mean, that's shocking. I still like. I kind of feel like maybe I fell and hit my head the night before we flew to Atlanta, and I'm just in a bad dream and nightmare because, hey, look, I said, well, maybe they won't be a playoff team this year. The defense may do this. The offense may not. I mean, Carolina sometimes never, when they can score a bunch of points, they don't historically. It's more of a defensive minded. And I'm like, well, maybe it's a tough year, whatever. And maybe but not this. It's the worst offense statistically since 1999. Do you know the clown show parade outside of some good ones at offensive coordinator that we've had around here at times? The Holtz era at least had Skip the whole time, unless Lou was taking over the offense, which was never good. Spurrier, when he turned it over to one guy, it was good. When he turned it over to another guy, it wasn't. And then Muschamp. I guess it's not a clown show parade, but there's been some very questionable hires at that position, and this is the king of the hill, Bobby. Damn it, Bobby! It's the king of the hill. So I just I don't know. James asked, was Shula the first choice of Beamer? No, he's the only choice. They just promoted from within.
Mm-hmm.
Somebody keeps asking if they light it up on the last 3 games, would they just?
Yeah, that's what I was getting to.
What do you think about that, Alex?
I think no matter what, you got to go outside the box, not outside the box, but outside the program to hire. Just because I think almost like a clean break type of thing. Because especially talking about new identity and things like that, or new schemes, it's just got to be completely clean, break free.
You think so?
Unless it's just like incredible, like an incredible type of turnaround type of thing. But
wouldn't that be crazy? If it's
I think it's got to be an outside.
And I don't even know that 3 games would be enough.
Yeah,
for that. And I'm not Mike Fury. Great job at line. If you go back and look at his Limestone offense, I love it. And Sean Elliott's run game and at a high level for a long time. This is nothing against those guys. But, look at Jerry Neuheisel. Jerry Neuheisel takes over at UCLA, talk of America. They light it up against UCLA, light it up against Michigan State. Not so. People are kind of they're figuring out what he's doing. Maryland holds them to 20. They still win. Then they go to Indiana and get the bejesus beat out of them and only score 6 points. So it's 3 games. And I don't know. I know what the fans want: clean break, new direction, move in a different direction. So that's it. But I'll tell you what, I hope they score 60. I hope they light them up the last 3 games. Winning is still more important than anything else.
Yeah, JC, you talk about all the time. Trophies matter when your program doesn't have very many of them. And South Carolina theoretically has an opportunity to get another trophy this year. And that's a heck of a thing to sell an offensive coordinator. Look, as far as the offensive staff goes, I don't want to speculate on people's careers. I like all these guys a lot, actually. Sean Elliott's a fantastic human being. Mike Furry, fantastic human being. One thing I will say, though, is I bet if I had to say who is safest, I would say Furry, because he's been a head coach at Limestone, played in the NFL, had a successful career. Wide receiver, he's been a great recruiter. He can coach whatever system comes into play here if he wants to be here. Sean Elliott's the one who, unfortunately for him, was coaching tight ends, got thrown to offensive line. And any offensive coordinator that comes in here is going to want to have assurances that the offensive line coach is going to coach what the scheme says and can do. So, and JC, running backs coach, do we really care anymore? As long as just recruit, honestly, just recruit. And if you can coach a lick, that's fine. But yeah, I think that the clean break thing is just so interesting, because you do lose valuable assets of a room if you have a clean break. And Shane's not in a position to say, yeah, well, you can come be the offensive coordinator, but you're going to take these people. And you don't have to look far, but go up in the upstate and see what Dabo Swinney's done with Garrett Riley. I don't know if Garrett Riley's a good offensive coordinator or not, but I do know that he's been put in the worst position possible at Clemson. And you can't do that next year if you're South Carolina.
I think this, sometimes these guys, they want their own O-line coach. That's kind of the thing. Sometimes, though, you have a good O-line coach and they want to bring their own. They're like, okay. And the guy they bring in sucks.
Yeah.
And he's good. He was good on the lower level with that system at that level, has no idea what to do. So you got to be careful with that. Sam Pittman's still out there, right? I want to, people, Beamer knows him. He coached with him.
I got some inside knowledge on Sam Pittman, by the way.
But
I talked to a former Arkansas player that's still well connected there. And let's just say Sam Pittman had a very, very friendly to the school contract that rewarded him the way contracts are supposed to be rewarded, as far as wins and losses. And basically when they parted ways, the conversation was, hey, you're not going to win the amount of games here on your contract to qualify for this buyout. How about we just split the buyout of what your difference would be, but you're not coaching next year as a part of it. So I don't see Pittman coaching. I think Pittman's ready just to take his money and
not coach. Okay, yeah. Great, super. Hey, fine. Hey, that's fine with me. I wasn't necessarily counting on it. I don't even know if he'd come to South Carolina, but
and maybe he changes his mind, and maybe the information I got was bad, but I trust it.
That man's probably having garage beers right now. Do you know what that does to a man after a long day of fishing? He can come home and have garage beers,
and he can pee in his backyard. Man, it's a good life.
What are you saying, Alex? I'm sorry.
Yeah, and I was saying as far as we'll get into the discussion of who can stay on the staff offensively. A lot of it's going to come down to who the OC is, because one, the OC is going to coach some position more than likely, but two, specifically it can be with an offensive line coach too. Those guys want to have their certain offensive line coach that they either have or that they want to bring with them too. So there's a lot of moving pieces that are going to go with that too, with how the staff's going to end up being filled out.
And Scott had a good. Scott said you could put Elliott back to tight ends if he wants to do it.
Sean, I don't think. I'll say that. Miss Reeves says Carolina needs to get off some money if they want a good football team. They've spent a ton of money this year, more than they ever have. I don't know where this talk comes from, other than back in the day, there was an athletic director before Ray Tanner that was notoriously cheap, and sometimes for good reason, sometimes for not. Carolina. God, how much is Clayton White making? $2 million?
Yeah,
and he's $2 million, and
I think it's some of the best $2 million. South Carolina
Shula was $1 million. So Paul says Gus Malzahn has been mentioned by whom? I said, well, Tiffany, I said it probably wouldn't be Gus. Like a guy like Gus. If it is Gus, it is Gus. I can't see that happening though.
I mean,
I think some fans want that.
I see people talking about Petrino on message boards. He's seemed willing to take an offensive coordinator job in the SEC, not be the head coach. But this is offense work. Absolutely. Does Shane need to have a food tester in his office before he eats a meal?
Absolutely.
Probably.
I'll say this too. I just want to clarify some things. Whoever mentioned Gus Malzahn's wishing, I would think stranger things have happened, but I just maybe there's a dramatic shift in his vision and that works. I just don't know about that. And I also want to clarify, I mentioned I liked Mike Shanahan from Indiana, and that's a name I personally like. Number one, I don't think he's leaving Kurt Cignetti. Number two, I don't think Beamer. I'm not trying to insinuate that that's who Beamer wants. That's just the type of guy I like. I just wanted to clarify there on that.
Now, the other thing we have to talk about, guys, is there is an opportunity that Clayton White is not the defensive coordinator next year because he's turned down jobs in the past. He's going to be looking for that right job, but he's a guy that's probably ready to be a head coach, quite frankly, and he has the track record. So, that gets into almost a worst case scenario for Shane Beamer when you got to potentially go find another defensive coordinator and then an offensive coordinator, marry those two things up so they work for your program. So there's just no other way to break it.
I tell you, the guy, it's a guy I like, but there is a state connection. The guy at Texas Tech is from Spartanburg. He played at Wofford, he's a Spartanburg high school Viking, played for them. I think I'm beyond impressed with what Texas Tech has done on defense this year. They're very atypical for a Big 12 team with how they play. And I look this dude up. I'm like, who in the heck is calling this defense? Well, it's Wofford's old defensive coordinator. Wofford's pretty salty on defense. And lo and behold, he's from Spartanburg, South Carolina. So,
and then you got the Texas Tech money where you can go get players. Yeah. Hey, I like this guy. All right, well, here's a checkbook. Go get him. We'll make that happen for you.
Yeah, but I don't know. Home is home, and you can pay a coach. Shield or Shielwood is his name. He was with Willie Fritz at Houston and Tulane. I think, gosh, when was this? Was this? Travian. Chris Hampton had left Tulane, and he replaced Chris Hampton. So he missed Travian at Tulane in 2023. But he used to be an Army. He was Code D coordinator. I mean, I don't know. I mean, here's a guy that actually, coached for Mike Ayers at Wofford and played for him and coached at Woodruff High School. Wow. But Spartanburg guy, 43 years old. I would do that. Jeff Collins is on staff. I would think, because he and Clayton White are tight, that if Clayton White, depending on the job, I would think he would probably go with Clayton White as his DC, is my opinion on it. And I think that, there's a mixed track record there. I just don't know that if you've had trouble hiring offensive coordinators, that the guy that gave up 70 points to James Madison at North Carolina, this is nothing against him. I'm kind of talking about how the fans would react. And then the minute the defense isn't as good, you're kind of out. So,
yeah, like I said, I said this in passing earlier, and I think that it's true. And I think Orlando Cock or somebody on the Big Spur said it. If this was 10 years ago and this was happening in South Carolina, I mean, JC, I think you're trending towards the wilderness after this season, but it's not. It's right now. So you do have the money. You're going to be able to hire coaches. You're going to be able to go get players in the portal. And look, if Shane has another year like this, someone asked a question. And I mean, I'll be very honest with y'all. I'm going to spitball on this because I've heard it from a couple different people, different things. How many games does Shane need to be safe next year? And I don't think there's a real number. A losing season, of course, you're out. You miss another bowl game, you're out. 6-6. I don't know if that does it. I don't know, because Gamecock fans aren't going to stand for it, and unfortunately for them, this is what they're dealing with. I saw questions about Dylan Stewart transferring. Look, Dylan Stewart's still busting his tail right now for this Gamecock defense. I don't think it's a situation where he feels like he needs to leave, and it's not. I don't think it's going to be a money thing for him because it's paid pretty well. So yeah. Go ahead, JC.
Yeah, people are mentioning that somebody had Kurt Roper on a hot board. Yeah, but just be careful with all that. I don't think there is a hot board. People keep mentioning Kendall Browse, and Tiffany mentions, because of what his dad did and what happened at Baylor. The one thing I would say as far as that's concerned, keep in mind there is a new athletic director. Keep in mind he came from TCU, and Kendall Browse is the OC out there. So he replaced Garrett Riley, and works for Sonny Dykes. So Jeremiah Donati has to know who he is and know him. So and had to approve that hire. Mike Gundy, I don't think so. No more former head coaches that are dusting off their old play calling chops. So he's had a bunch of coordinators there and hadn't really been dialing them up. So that I'm not going to hate it if Mike Gundy comes to South Carolina. It'd be great press conferences. But I don't think that's I'm not saying they even need somebody young. You just need somebody like Bobby Petrino is not young. But Bobby Petrino, from a football standpoint, would be a fantastic hire. I just don't know about that dynamic there. But, they're older dudes that can dial them up with the best of them. I mean, but I'm not saying young. I'm just saying no more guys that are all of a sudden like, hey, I'm going to come back and call plays now. Like that time that Barry Odom hired Derek Dooley at Missouri. Derek had he had really good offenses, man. He dialed them up just fine, but that's just not the type of you've done that before. I just think you need a new plan.
Yeah, and you know how this works, JC. There's going to be a million questions on every show on Chief Sports Network this week on thebigspur.com. We're going to get mentions in Twitter. The hot board stuff is just so early. just if you want to make your own hot board, that's awesome. Because I'd love to know some guys to go scout and go look at their success and look. Send Shane an email. I'm dead serious if you want to, because Chamblee's got found because Mike Farrell posted him on Twitter or whatever, and now he's at Ole Miss. But and look, JC, we get a lot of this. GA Mangus, I don't think GA wants to be in this game anymore. But never say never to 2 million, right?
Yeah, I got GA would be fantastic at coaching, but he's been out for a while. I don't see that's the direction that's a direction that they go. Andy Kolnicki at Penn State, I like what he does. It's good. I don't necessarily. I think Drew Aller had a lot to do with why they weren't that good, and then they didn't really have a great receiving core. I kind of like him.
JC, we did get a question here from James Morris. Did the athletic director pressure strongly suggest for Shane to fire his OC? Look, I'm sure there were conversations. Shane is the kind of guy that's going to bounce ideas off people and just say, "Hey, what are you thinking? What are you feeling? Here's my thoughts on it. Want to get yours." If you haven't seen the thing going around on Twitter, this zoomed in on Shane Beamer right before halftime, I think that decision was made right then and there, despite the outcome of the game last night, that he had just looked at it for too long and he couldn't go forward like that. So I'm sure the AD had something to do with it, but I don't think this was an ultimatum type situation.
No.
AD has to approve everything. Very rarely and I think too, everybody's all frustrated with Ray Tanner all the time. So they automatically think that the things they were frustrated with Ray Tanner about, i.e., why can't Ray step in and make coaches fire coaches? They just automatically assume other ADs do it. The one example of that lately was Woodward that did it with Brian Kelly at LSU. And then he ended up getting fired and Kelly got fired.
Yeah.
So good ADs don't do that. They don't make ultimatums. Now, may they make suggestions? Yes. And if the suggestions are not followed and failure continues, then they fire you. The good ADs fire you. They don't sit there and wait around and go, "Well, I told you to do this, and it's okay that you didn't listen and still continue to screw this up." So I don't know what the conversations were between Donati and Beamer about this. I do believe that Beamer was quoted as said it's 1,000,000,000% his decision.
Yeah.
So just got to go with what he says. Somebody asked about the North Texas OC. That's the head coach is calling the plays out there, Eric Morris. So,
and JC, you say this all the time, and I'm just going to echo it right now. This is a very important time not to hire the guy that worked for the guy. You have to go find the offensive coordinator that implemented his system, designed his system, knows his system inside and out, has had success calling his system. You can't go get the guy that worked for the guy in this situation. Ross asked, think we lose any recruits? At the end of the day, Shane Beamer, I don't know how many more times he can do it, but he's had down seasons and retained pretty much the entire recruiting class.
And Shane being very involved in recruiting helps that process too, because with going through these coaching changes, he's very involved with all their commitments. So I think that plays a huge role. Because we've talked about it before, Matt. 2 years ago when that season wasn't going well and you had Dylan Stewart and Josiah Thompson in that class, they mainly kept that thing together. So right now it doesn't seem like that's going to be much of an issue.
You got here's one for you, JC. Brad Glenn at Cincy worked for Sean Elliott at Georgia State. He's a Clemson graduate. Probably could get him if you wanted him, but then the fans would be pissed off that he's a Clemson alum.
Yeah, Carolina had a Clemson alum as OC, Ricky Bussell, Brad Scott's first OC. He was actually Shane Beamer's dad's longtime OC at Virginia Tech. And he's really good. He left after 1 year and went back to Virginia Tech. Brad, gosh, chat box distracted me. Brad Glenn is a very good offensive coordinator, and he knows Sean Elliott, obviously, from his App State. He would be fantastic. They have a good quarterback at Cincinnati, but he's really helped Scott Satterfield turn that thing around. They're actually really good this year. So that would be fun. VK says, some guy named Cole is saying you broke the Fury and Elliott calling plays. Yeah, that's my understanding. I didn't say calling plays. I said co-coordinators. And people got to understand too, the coordinator, if you're a coordinator, it doesn't necessarily mean you're the play caller, right? I'm sure one of those two guys will call it, though. Don't you think, Alex?
Yeah.
JC, you've talked about this in the past, but it's probably time to echo it again. And Alex, I want to chime in with you first. Then we'll come back to JC, and then I'll put some touches on this one as well. I don't think that regardless of your anger or your frustration with Shane Beamer and the way that the program has cratered this year, this isn't the year to fire Shane Beamer, even all things aside, buyout, whatever. Let's say it's $0. I don't think it's the year you go try and find a new head coach.
Yeah, somebody in the chat brought that up, and I was going to bring that up on the board. Like I think that's this. That fault is absolutely there. Just because think of how many jobs are open right now in the SEC. You got, Florida, Arkansas is open, LSU is open, Auburn open today. It's a ton of jobs. Plus, then you're going to have these other jobs going to open with guys going to those jobs. So it's going to be a competitive market out there.
I think that with where the roster's at and the amount of young talent that you have, a best case scenario is indeed no head coaching change this year.
Yeah.
And look, man, I will say this. I like the South Carolina job. Jobs have pecking orders and all that good stuff. Coaches go path of least resistance. They're going to go the best job as they see it. It is what it is. Now, with that said, I'm not one of these people that's like, oh my God, Florida and LSU are open, and this is open, and that's open, and we're not going to get a coach. You're probably not getting a coach that would take those jobs anyway. LSU at least, right? But this year is so weird, guys, because you have like this pool of coaches that could easily win big at one of those big jobs, right? They're all at their alma maters. Kenny Dillingham's at his school. Clark Lee is at his school. Jeff Brom is at his school. Brent Key is at his school. They're not leaving. They're not effing leaving. I would be surprised. Now, sometimes coaches do leave their alma maters, and it usually backfires on them. And so that's kind of your next group beyond like the big names, which are essentially Lane Kiffin and to a lesser extent Eli Drinkwitz. There's just not a lot of good coaches out there right now that makes sense. So you're rolling the dice more than you normally do. And then you throw in the fact that big name hires are backfiring. I mean, if you'd have told me Hugh Freeze, who won at Lambeth, wherever that is, who was portrayed beautifully in The Blind Side, because that's how I knew Hugh Freeze, because he was coaching Michael Orr at Briarcrest Christian in 2005. His first press conference I ever covered at Rivals.com was Michael Orr's in Memphis, the Blindside guy. But he won at Lambeth. He won at Arkansas State. He goes to Ole Miss, turns that program around, wins there, gets them to the Sugar Bowl, recruits weirdly, strangely. I knew he was going to get in trouble. He did. Leaves, goes to Liberty. Can't lose at Liberty, right? Well, when's he come back to the SEC? Well, I figured he'd take Tennessee or Auburn, because Auburn, they hired Bruce Pearl. They don't care. At Auburn, they don't give a damn. They're going to hire him. I was like, that's a marriage. That's a match made in heaven. I thought that was going to be a perfect fit. I thought they were on their way back,
I would have never have thought that it wouldn't have worked because they couldn't figure out quarterback. And that's just what's wild about it, is that's for the reason they could not get it figured out. And you would think with Hugh Freeze, that would be one of the easiest things to figure out.
Unbelievable. So you just don't know. Billy Napier. There are a lot of people that thought, oh, why did Tanner hired Beamer over Napier? My God. How did that work out? So I agree with you, Matt. I don't think this is the year to go head coach shopping. I just don't. But as I also said earlier, it can always get worse. SC Lawman says, to Virginia Tech have legit interest in Shane Beamer? Is that report believable? Are you talking about the one SC Lawman from recently, or was there one today?
Probably from weeks ago, JC.
Yeah, Tiffany asks, is the Loxley stuff true? No, it's not. Rob Reinhart is not a real person, or whoever that Twitter account. It's a troll that has made up somebody, and it looks like it's a reporter.
Mm-hmm.
And so he just posts crap all the time. I really think that person is a loser that does that. But I mean, people fall for it. So no, Loxley has not been fired.
The other thing that I'll say too is with all these coaches getting fired, I mean, James Franklin's the one that sticks out like a sore thumb. I mean, the winning he did at Penn State, the winning he did at Vanderbilt, I would be a little weary of hiring James Franklin, not because of his past success, but college ball programs now, with the way that they're able to openly pay for players, get players to come to their school, all of that. This is now at the highest level becoming truly X's and O's more than Jimmy's and Joe's, because the Jimmy's and Joe's are going to be there at these big time programs. And the margin for error is so small that you have to get your head coach hire right. And you could be potentially looking at 5-6 years like of wilderness, JC and Alex, if you were to fire Shane Beamer right now, because you just don't know.
Yeah.
I think James Franklin would be a great fit at Virginia Tech, to be honest. He knows that area. That's a conference right now. He can rack up some wins in that conference. I think that'd be a very nice fit. Honestly, that's something I've been watching.
Because you got to acquire talent there. You got to convince them that they struggle with geography because Blacksburg's kind of but James Franklin is just like every other coach. You got to hire good coordinators, and I thought he had two good ones.
Mm-hmm.
And then you got to hire the right quarterback. You got to have the right quarterback. And here's the difference too. Virginia Tech fans, man, you get them back to where they were, where they're contending in the ACC every year, which means you're going to the playoff. They're not going to give a flip if you have a losing streak against Clemson or Florida State or whatever. They're not going to care. At Penn State, the standards are a little higher, and thanks for the memories, James. But they put so much into that Oregon game and lost, and they're like, here we go again. And then you look at it, Ohio State, you lose to Ohio State, you lose to Michigan, you get it. Well, now you've added Oregon, and then you can't beat them. And then the UCLA debacle happened, and then never lose to Northwestern at home.
Well, and then don't forget he fired. Well, he fired or didn't really fire him, but he was going to fire his defensive coordinator last year, and his defensive coordinator went to Clemson, and you can see what's happening at Clemson. So, even these coaches that have had success after success after success, maybe falling short in those big games. That's why the head coaching job is so important, and why Shane has to get it right this time if he has one or two openings for coordinators.
Yeah, it will be, but it'll be interesting, guys, to see what happened. I just think good move being made now. By the way, Shane Beamer did not confirm for Fury and Elliott in the teleconference today. I'm not retracting what I said about it. And I understand why you don't want to get into it right now strategically, but so I guess I just won't talk about it a whole lot. And then
well, there's also there is a big advantage for who's the play caller when you go into the A&M game. I mean, that is at this point your biggest strategic advantage is what tape are you going to pull? Are you going to pull limestone tape? Are you going to pull Georgia State tape? You're going to pull old Spurrier tape? Where are you going to get your scout?
Man, I can't find any limestone tape, man.
I've been searching. Furry has that locked up somewhere, or the DVR over recorded for this season, whatever it is.
I mean, the place doesn't exist anymore. Limestone College is gone. I mean,
it was all.
Our office, they're like, "Are you serious? We got a guy who did good things in a place that no longer exists." I'm like, yeah, you
Well,
put
dude,
it.
I actually thought about it with Disney and ESPN and YouTube TV and all this. I wonder how many coaching staffs. And I know they're not relying on it, but I DVR all the Gamecock stuff. Right? I couldn't watch any of my old film. I couldn't watch anything this week. They took it all. Like there's like Charleston Southern's like, well, crap. We don't have anything on Baylor last year.
Ross says new OC around Christmas. I'd be worried there was little interest. Nah, it's just the calendar. It has nothing to do with interest. I mean,
sometimes
OCs are coaching right now.
Well, and then you also have the contract terms too, where the calendar year flips, and if you're paying a buyout for an offensive coordinator, whatever, you're going to probably want to wait on that too.
You got to think about high school sign-in day too.
SC Lawman, is that Brad Crawford's report from recently, or was that a couple of weeks ago, like Oklahoma week?
That was a couple of weeks ago.
Brad hadn't said anything recently. Yeah, so that's there was some smoke out there about it in coaching circles. I'll be honest with you, but I had to check on it. But I think Virginia Tech's going in a different direction, to be honest.
Well, I think it.
Yeah.
Look, I mean, Frank Son would be a pretty tough hire to sell your fan base on after 2 out of 3 losing seasons, the way it's going right now. So you still got to win the press conference. You got to win the buzz. You got to do all that. Now, if Shane Beamer was fired for whatever reason in South Carolina, I think that Shane would be very, very interested in the Virginia Tech job. Just like any coach or anybody that doesn't have money coming in, you're going to want to take it.
I can guarantee you Beamer's 100% focused on short term getting this team program job, right? To win games and to make sure that he has a job here for a while. I mean, and honestly, those that say it took too long are absolutely correct. I mean, I don't think Beamer would. He'd probably just say in hindsight, yeah, you're right. But you can't live life in hindsight. You can't approach college football in hindsight. I'm sure Vanderbilt fans were sitting there wondering when they're going to fire Clark Lee after he went 2-10 a couple of years ago. And he was one hire away from changing the entire narrative around that program in 18 months.
And let's not forget, like in some instances, you have to compare South Carolina to the team in the upstate. Geography, all of that. Now, Dabo Swinney did not start winning at Clemson right away. People forget that. I think Dabo would never gotten the head coaching job if he hadn't beat South Carolina. And there were times too where he was on the hot seat in Clemson before he got it rolling. And I think in any college sports program, if you think there's a 50-50 chance you still have the guy, you don't make a move. If it's we know we don't have the guy, you have to make that move. Shane's not there yet. And look, we talked about the recruiting, we talked about the roster. None of these kids have given up. They're still fighting every day. And even the folks that come after Lenoris on message boards and Twitter, he's still standing back there and trying to shake off defenders and keep plays alive. And look, I mean, he could say, I pulled a hammy going to the NFL. Like, he hasn't done that. And look, I mean, I read something on ESPN today. You take this report for what it's worth, but they polled NFL scouts GM, said that Lenoris is the day 2 pick right now. That means round 2, round 3. I still think that Lenoris is in there somewhere, and I'm on the record saying that Lenoris is going to be a very good NFL quarterback in time. I think he's going to be one of those guys that wins fantasy championships for sure when he goes to the NFL.
He's essentially had his rookie season this year, so but just against college players. But yeah, so one more question. Big name for OC? No. In fact, I mean, Mike Shula was a big name. Who's the bigger name? Who would you know if you said Dowell Loggins or Mike Shula? Mike Shula. Who's the better coordinator?
Dowell.
Yeah.
And so I don't think a big name. I think that a great coordinator with a track record is what you need. And I think most Gamecock fans are going to look, even if it's a lower level guy, and say, look at the numbers, and look at the film. There's going to be some that think that Carolina's just a little too good to hire a group of 5 coordinator, and that's never accurate. Because using that logic, then the greatest thing you can get is an NFL coordinator, right? We've seen how that works out. So that's how it's going to rock. But Jeff mentioned Lenore's played his worst game last night, by the way. Nobody's questioned that, but you can't throw away the other games he's played based on one bad game.
Man, even his 2 interceptions last night, if you just check box scores, those interceptions did not come in critical moments of the game. The game was decided, and he was taking some shots, and good for him.
Now he needs to play better. The coaches, whatever's happening with the offense, if they set him up to play better, and he still doesn't play better, then it's on him.
Well,
but
to y'all's point earlier, just getting him comfortable. What did Urban Meyer say? One of the first couple plays of the game, he wanted his quarterback to throw the ball as far as he possibly could downfield, just to get that throw out of his system, get the nerves out, or get hit. Steven talks about it all the time. He needed to get hit to get into the game. Yeah. Now, I don't think that Steven wanted to get sacked to get into the game, and oftentimes that's what's happening to Lenore's. I see a lot of questions in here. Lenore's going to go pro, whatever, be back next year. I would go as far as to say that based on information I have right now, coupled with my thoughts, Lenore's is more likely to be in an NFL uniform next year than a college football uniform that doesn't say Gamecocks on the front. So fans still believe, the people that pay Lenore's salary still believe in him. So he'll have that decision to make. Dylan Stewart, we can't. I don't think there's much smoke there. I mean, I think he's happy, and he's going to get paid. So if you're happy and you get paid, unless you're really chasing a championship ring, and then who knows what happens when you leave greener pastures and you're already going to be probably the number 1 pick in the draft next year, or the first defensive player off the board next year, regardless.
Yeah, we'll see what happens with that. Well, anyway, Alex, do you have anything else?
I think we've pretty much touched it all here tonight. Hey, basketball starts Tuesday.
Yeah.
That's my final closing thought. It's very telling that, I've noticed Gamecock fans are a little bit more fired up about the start of basketball season than I anticipated, because the team lost 20 games last year and it's picked last in the SEC. That tells you how bad things are on offense and with football, is that everybody's like, hell, basketball's happening. Well, shoot, maybe there's some hope. And you know why? Because the basketball team can score.
Yeah.
They shot it well. That's why everybody's happy. I mean, think about how many men's athletic teams at South Carolina cannot score. Even the women, before a couple of years ago, they'd win a lot of 64-31 type games,
Yeah.
I'm like, wow. Yeah.
Should say that basketball Gamecock Chuck Brennan. So basketball season actually starts tomorrow. The women's open the season tomorrow against Grand Canyon.
Yeah.
And the men play Tuesday against North Carolina A&T. But to your point on the scoring part, this basketball team is going to be decent or pretty fun to watch, just because that backcourt, it's got a chance to be pretty electric if they can get some things going. Then the women's team is going to be, they're always fun to watch because they're, just a lot of times, especially in the non-conference, just so much better than a lot of these teams, and they got a chance again to go all the way.
Yeah, it's gonna be fun. Unfortunately for South Carolina fans, outside of the women's basketball program, you've had a dud in basketball last year, dud in baseball last year, dud in football this year, and it can make you feel like the sky is falling.
No, it sucks. After those 2 seasons last year, I was like, well, at least football is going to be good next year. I drank the Kool-Aid, man, because I look at it like, who are your players coming? Players. And they had players. Anyway, I could go all night,
I said it in the offseason, man. Yeah, in the offseason, man, I said that in every game this season, you're likely to have the best offensive player and best defensive player on the field at a given time. and it just hasn't worked out. But y'all, Alex and I will be right back here Wednesday. We're going to be talking about the Gamecock men's basketball game, the women's basketball game. We're going to get into some of the SEC basketball conversation too. Bye week, thank God we don't have to talk about playing Texas A&M next week. There's going to be a lot that falls out over the next couple of days that I'm sure we'll be reporting on thebigspur.com. Remember, y'all, we appreciate you so much when you come be a part of this show. You give us the most valuable thing you have, which is your time. So thank y'all. We hope that this rant has been a fruitful one. As always, we always say, come here with your anger. We're here for it. That's what this show is about. And JC, we really appreciate you joining us tonight, man.
Yeah, sorry for keeping you up so late, Alex, but it was fun and a nice little long extended episode. I just felt like with the news today and the way the game went, it was probably a good thing to do. All right.
Absolutely. Well, make sure you're checking out Chief Sports Network on the Chief Sports app. Make sure you're going to Spotify podcasts, wherever, if you can't catch us live. Got shows running all the time. It's amazing how great this network has become and also how much it's grown. So there's going to be plenty of conversation tomorrow are you doing coffee in the morning, JC?
Oh yeah.
There'll be coffee. There'll be the early show.
I'm going to dig in more to the Ole Miss game tomorrow, and we'll talk about offense again. But yeah, dig in.
And don't forget, Chief Sports Network. You go to the Chief Sports app, get some of that merch. I'm telling you, the Gamecock logo is fantastic on the merch. I'm going to be scooping up a couple of those here soon if I can't get Jamie to send me some for free. But yeah, definitely. It's really cool. It's really cool stuff, and especially with Nike being on the shirts and the pullovers and all that, you'll look really good going into the season next year. So thank you all again, Alex. Thank you. See you Wednesday. I know you'll be at the game Tuesday, so excited for that, and we'll be right back Wednesday. Everyone have a good one.
Take care, boys.
Bye, everyone.
Yeah.